brought them out for neighbors.
Okay, thank you once again, folks, for joining us here for Global Lens 2013. My name is Rob Peasley, and I'm one of the faculty members here in the College of Media and Communication, and the on-campus coordinator for the film series here at Texas Tech. I want to introduce briefly our panelists for this evening, and then turn things over to them for a few minutes to offer their comments on the film, and then we'll open it up for discussion and Q&A. We'll proceed, I guess, in order that they are seated here. Just to my left here is Dr. Gary Elbow, who is Associate Vice Provost for Academic Affairs, as well as Professor of Geography. Dr. Elbow is interested in human geography, particularly Latin American regional geography and geographic education. His research involves transnationalism in Latin America. He recently co-edited an online collection of papers for the National Council on Geographic Education, entitled Geographic Literacy in the United States, Challenges and Opportunities. Next to him, Dr. Katy Ballard, who recently, I know, right? Who recently defended her dissertation, which was entitled Queens of the South Plains, Collected Oral Histories of Drag Queens Living in Lubbock. I had the good fortune of being one of the committee members for that dissertation, and what that was a collection of oral histories of 5 Lubbock, Texas performance artists who participate or have participated in local drag queen shows and culture here in the Lubbock area. And so we very much appreciate Katy taking some time after she's been so busy for the last year and a half or so to join us tonight. And then finally, next to Katy is Andrew Friedman. Andrew is a counselor at the Texas Tech Counseling Center and a doctoral student in counseling psychology at Texas Tech University. Andrew has conducted counseling and assessment at the Texas Tech Psychology Clinic, the Southwest Cancer Treatment and Research Center, the Texas Tech Health Sciences Center, Department of Internal Medicine, and Lubbock County Community Correctional Facility. He's taught general psychology and theories of personality. He's done outreach work for the Sexual Assault Awareness and Prevention Campaign and consulted for the Lubbock Independent School District Police Department. Andrew's clinical and research interests pertain to health psychology, gender, and the psychology of men and masculinity. And also, Katy, just as an aside, Andrew told me that after you finish your dissertation in counseling psychology, you have 2 more years.
At least one.
Which he is now working on completing. So I want to thank all of you for joining us. And we normally let you proceed alphabetically, but since Dr. Elbow is the only returning member of the panel, I thought perhaps you might begin and pass it off to Katy.
Okay. Well, I want to talk a little bit about some of the cultural issues that are involved here, not necessarily gender issues, because that's the thing I do. And I'll start out by telling you that I'm way out of my own territory, because usually I do Latin American films, and the last time I looked they weren't speaking Spanish. So, but I've been to Croatia, I've been to Slovenia for short periods of time, and I've been kind of interested in former Yugoslavia. And of course I was around during the 90s when Yugoslavia fell apart. And I think there's some really interesting things in the film that relate to the issues between Serbia and Croatia and Bosnia and Kosovo in particular. Those are the 4 characters and the 4 areas that are sort of featured. And I thought I'd give a little bit of background on where that all comes from. And how many of you, does anybody remember how World War I started? And you're wondering, where is he coming from, right? Well, Archduke Ferdinand of the Austro-Hungarian Empire was assassinated in Sarajevo, which is the capital of Bosnia, in I think it was 1912. And it was Serbs who killed him. It was Serbian nationalists who were very unhappy about the fact that Austro-Hungary had taken over Croatia and Bosnia, which the Serbs felt should have been part of their territory. And the reason I'm bringing this up is to point out that Serbian nationalism and to a certain extent Serbian colonialism has an expansionism has been going on for a long time. After World War II, well, let me back up for a minute and say that Yugoslavia was an artificial creation in the first place. So it was something that was done as part of the Treaty of Versailles after World War I, the same kind of thing that created Iraq and Syria and some other countries that have been in the news a little bit lately. And with just about equal lack of success. And so after World War II, a man by the name of Tito, Joseph Broz, came into power in Yugoslavia, and he held the country together until he died in 1980. And after he died, it took about 10 years, but the country then blew up. And it blew up in part because the component parts just couldn't get along together. And it's kind of an interesting thing because you notice that those four characters were all talking to each other, and in reality they probably could, with the exception of the Albanian, the Kosovar Albanian, because the Croatian language and Serbian language and Bosnian are all very close and they're mutually intelligible. I understand from a little bit of reading that I did that since Yugoslavia broke up, the different groups are actually working to differentiate their languages as a part of a kind of a nationalistic movement, but they are pretty much mutually intelligible. The differences come in things like religion, and I'm sure you noticed that two of the characters, the Bosnian guy and the Kosovar, are Muslim. And what you probably didn't pick up on is that Miki Limoni is Orthodox, Serbian Orthodox, and that Rocco, interesting, he's got an Italian name, Rocco is Catholic, if he's anything, but the Croatians are Catholic and the Serbs are Orthodox, and those religious differences are very, very important to those people. So there are long-standing significant ethnic differences in those groups. And what I found to be especially interesting was that the filmmaker chooses to put them all together and have them get along as a result of the fact that they met during war as enemies and became friends over a roll of toilet paper or whatever it happened to be. And I got to thinking about that, and I remembered that there was a case in the Civil War where I think it was a holiday, but I can't remember for sure, where the two sides, the North and the South, actually suspended fighting for a day and got together and then went back and started fighting with each other. And there's a similar kind of incident from World War I where the Germans and the French did a similar kind of thing. So it's not unknown for this kind of thing to happen. But I thought it was an extremely interesting sort of approach. And I got to thinking about why the director chose to do that. Because he could have put other kinds of characters in there who were Serbian, who could have served the same purpose in terms of what their role was in the film. And I wondered if, number one, it wasn't a kind of a spoof on the conflict that had ended 10 years roughly before the film was made, and pointing out, just as he did with gender, that there's really, those differences are not terribly important, but we fight over them. So you've got, you've got the battle with brothers, and you've got over ethnicity and the battle with brothers and sisters over gender taking place. Anyway, I'll pass it off to one or the other of you.
Is it okay to comment on that really fast?
Oh, absolutely.
To me, I kind of also saw it as a mechanism, or the director was saying that they're enemies, are, they're coming together, but there's still one group they hate above everybody else, and that was the homosexual group, or the gay group. So that was one way I interpreted it as well. So thank you, because I was curious about a lot of that while watching it. I'm going to go in a little different direction. I'm going to make a horrible admission. I love Adam Sandler movies and like Will Ferrell movies and raunchy comedies like that. So when I watched this, I was laughing and thought it was hilarious. Watching it again, it was actually it was much harder to watch and listen to the jokes that they were making. There were so many jokes about, gay sex and gay lives. That, it's funny, but at the same time, it was really over the top. The stereotypes were extreme, which I'm sure was done on purpose. Very feminine men, hyper-masculine men, and playing on all of those stereotypes, which reminded me of, has anybody, The Birdcage, if y'all have seen that with Robin Williams, reminded me of Priscilla, Queen of the Desert, Tu Wong Fu, Thanks for Everything, Julie Newmar, other LGBTQ movies, and they're often comedies. And they're playing on these same stereotypes and these same themes. And so I thought it was funny that they were doing the same thing, or that the director is doing that here. And so it's a very deep topic. And at the end, I love how it switches over. It's comedy, it's funny, it's raunchy, and then he does his speech. Is it Mirko? I'm probably mutilating that. And he does his speech where he says, there's two sides of Serbia, and then he says that they have to live different lives for their parents, their friends, their families. And I understand that because I've had to live that way with certain groups. And so it's such a poignant moment. And then, of course, when you see them drop his body and the moment when they come together, I think it's interesting that he didn't kiss him at the end when he was dying. I don't know why that choice was made. But the tone of the whole movie changes in that last few minutes. So it was interesting to me that the director, like other American directors, chose comedy to deal with these topics. And then to have that last little bit of the movie get very serious and poignant. And so I don't really have an answer to it. I just thought it was interesting. That was something that I noticed about it. So I laughed right along with it. And then when it came to the end, when I watched it, I was crying. I had a very emotional moment to the end of it. And then even in the end, she kind of teases him about getting emotional, the husband or Lemon, but it's still, he goes and he's going to put the ashes out. And then they end it by mentioning that the parade, was this, sort of success. And so I just wanted to comment on that. Was my reaction to the movie. It's very funny, but I love how at the end they switch over. And it makes you wonder, could he have done a serious movie that would have been as appealing? Maybe we need to laugh, and those jokes, those stereotypes that we have need to be addressed in a comedic way, and then to come back to the end and have it come together. So, I don't know. That's all I have at the moment.
I definitely appreciate a lot of those comments. Before I give my reaction, I am contractually obligated to stump very quickly for the Student Counseling Center and let you know that as full-time students here, you all have 6 sessions that are already paid for as part of your tuition. So if you have anything going on in your life, you feel like you want someone to talk to, stop on by. Now I can progress. So I, like you, I kind of had a very different reaction watching this movie the second time. I'm aware, like, a lot of my research is in gender and masculinity, and whereas the first time I watched it, I felt like I was watching it through the viewpoint of more of an ally and all of this stuff going on, and every time they, I guess they didn't say it, but I got to see them say faggot up on stage. I just kind of get that, like, cringe.
Yeah.
But this time is kind of having more of that realization about a lot of the gender roles in this movie. One thing that some people in the literature talk about a lot is that in situations where there's more danger and resources are more scarce, people fall into much more traditional gender roles. So the guys are more tough, the women are more submissive. There aren't a lot of women in this movie. I also think that that's worth pointing out too. But so here you have these really, like you said, these really manly guys, and then you have the women, and then you have these guys that people just can't figure out because they look like guys on the outside, but they don't sleep with women. And how can you really be a guy if you don't sleep with women? And that confuses people, and as we see throughout history, throughout the world, when people get confused, when they don't understand something, they act out against it, they get angered by it, and those people end up getting persecuted because they don't fall into a category that people understand. As the movie progresses, you start to see kind of this mixing. You see the straight guys engaging in a lot of what's called homosocial behavior. It's not homosexual. They're not attracted to other men, but they have a lot of camaraderie with these other guys. Stuff that would, I think, stereotypically be considered more gay. They're dancing with each other and they're kissing each other and they're talking about various other things. My mind's slipping me right now, but things that I think they would stereotype, and honestly a lot of folks in our society would stereotype as being more gay. But it's okay for them because they're big macho men, and they fought in a war and they killed people. So if they're scared of seeing a little blood when the mule is giving birth, then that's all right. That doesn't mean anything about their masculinity. On the other hand of it, you see kind of this switch of Mirko being the guy who's kind of standing up and saying, listen, we got to fight these guys. And his partner, Radmilo, being kind of the more subdued, well, I don't know, I don't want to kind of stick out, I don't want to worry about getting hurt, I don't want to put myself or you in a place where we can get hurt. There's something that I noticed this time seeing it that I didn't notice before. And I don't know if this translates, I might just be kind of projecting this, but there was a scene when Mirko's getting bandaged up by Radmilo, and afterwards, and they were talking about, hey, this is what, I'm tired of this crap, we need to keep moving on. And the last thing he says to Radmilo before he leaves is, don't forget to take your gloves off. And a lot of times when we use the phrase taking the gloves off, it means we're getting serious. We're not playing around, we're not sparring, this is a real fight. And something that struck me towards the end is when they're having the Pride Parade, and Radmilo has a beard. He's slightly more, he has a serious face throughout the rest of the movie. He's kind of more smiling and bubbly and giggly, and even Lemon's saying how he's tough now. So we kind of see this mix of the straight guys exhibiting more homosocial behaviors towards the end, and kind of this message that listen, you want this, you have to get up and fight for it, which I think is a very macho, hyper masculine kind of ideal, and that's something I saw kind of playing out as the movie continued. So that's my 2 cents.
Questions?
At the very end, the father saw he hands off the weapon. What truly does that symbolize? Just acceptance of the whole culture. It didn't really capture the whole essence of it.
Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts on that?
Kind of passing the baton, in a way. I don't know. To me, it was just a gesture of them coming together, and I think the son accepting that from the father. And I'm not coming from from an understanding of masculinity, but that's what it represented to me, was finally acceptance between the two of them. And of course the son choosing to come over to the side with his father. And we saw him earlier at the hospital looking in on him, so I think it was just to symbolize them coming back together. I don't know.
I mean, to me, it had a lot to do with maturing of the son, saying, okay, you were kind of fighting on the boys' side now, and now you're a man, now you realize what the bigger issues are. And having respect and having your family and fighting for the right side is more important than just being a ruffian for the sake of being a ruffian. That's kind of what I got out of it.
I think, go ahead.
I think by the end, you wrote about it. I don't know why he got like real man before.
So instead of them coming together as a couple, was able to kind of see him there as.
But again, not this gay way. It's like who's the man, who's not the man. It's like moment of pride to fight for who you are, who you believe in, and die for it. It's the God who started the whole thing, and his part of his, I don't know, agenda, life, right?
Mm-hmm.
Actually, it's very interesting. I think we see different nationalities, we see different religions, different sexual orientations. But I think we just need to be kids. And this gay parade, it's not just maybe the way you walk on the street freely, like nobody will hurt you. But it's sort of an invitation. Look at us, try to understand, try to be with us from the inside, with people. We love, we fight for our ideas, we defend our stuff, and there is no religion, there is no nationality. My
Yeah.
Well, I was going to say basically similar to that, and that the underlying message of the movie is we fear what we don't understand, kind of what you were talking about. And it's really just a part of human nature that we need to work on.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole American History X thing with the son, I thought that was a really good way of pointing it out for the director. And so I think like the overall message of the way that they made it from like they took it from like a lighthearted comedy with some dark messages to just that very melancholy end was that you can laugh at these stereotypes all you want, but in the end we're all somehow similar past our uniqueness.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I thought that was really, I thought the way they did that was really creative and really incredible.
Can I ask you to speak to the notion of the parade as performance and how that sort of has manifested as this way of invitation or whatever.
It was interesting watching it, the comparison, say, going to when I've gone to Dallas Gay Pride or San Antonio, and then the difference of watching it here in this movie. And I think they said that the footage, part of the footage was actually from the 2010 parade. It was very somber. There's not half-naked people on a big float dancing around for attention, and there's no, a lack of drag queens. Drag queens often become the symbol for gay pride. And so, the difference between what I've experienced going to parades here and seeing that show, it is a way to show off, and it is a way to show who you are and to freely be somewhere where you can show affection to your partner and not worry about it, and to perform. You see floats go by and people are dressed up and dancing and throwing beads and candy, and it's a performance. It's all about showing who you are and what you're about. and then the contrast, seeing the one here in the film where it was simply an event just to get from one place to another and not be hurt, but to be able to be open enough, at least on that day. I love at how they say at the end, tomorrow they'll beat us up just like normal, but today they could walk down the street and be safe. But definitely, Pride events are about performance and exhibition, and knowing that you're being watched, and so, but yeah, declaring who you are.
From the part of the world where Orthodox religion sees, it's like a huge scene. So it's wonderful. And not just, we're so lucky here to expose ourselves in this community. We have no idea sometimes how the rest of the world is.
No.
And that's the violence of the skinheads. Not that many time ago in Moscow, it was huge problem because foreigners were just afraid to get out because skin people. One of my friends went, oh my gosh, how am I going to walk on the Moscow streets? Oh, I need to shave my head look like that. So it's not really a joke anymore. We have we saw a lot of jokes in the movie, but it's not a joke.
Yeah, that's what interested me, was how they taking this topic and that this does happen. And I'd like, even in Lubbock, people that I interviewed have been harassed and, tormented, beaten up. And people talked about that. So when Lubbock had their gay pride event, we had one in 2011, I think, and then 2012, but they weren't big events, and they certainly weren't parades. That got very complicated. But it was still something people were worried about. They were worried about who would find out and who would come. So they're not worried in the same way that we saw in the movie, but there's definitely still people that get beat up for being that way. Drag queens talk about how they won't go out. Some of them won't go to certain places, and they definitely won't go in drag because they're afraid of what would happen. So
yeah, I remember I think when they're giving the conference, one of the reporters says something along the lines of, why would you bring these riots? They're saying that like
it's their fault.
Yeah, like it's their fault. It made me think of like victim blaming with like sexual assault survivors and that sort of thing. Why would you cause this violence when all they want to do is just exist and walk down the street? And I like that you brought up that point, because one of the things I was thinking of is, oh my gosh, I had a first reaction thinking, I'm so glad that I live in a country where people can walk the street and be themselves. And then I thought, just because we have pride, just because we have, there's a couple of gay clubs in Lubbock, doesn't mean that stuff like this doesn't still happen all the time. And it's something that I think it is important for us to be aware of.
I really think the Lemon, is his name Lemon?
Yes.
That character is a fascinating character.
Yeah.
Fish out of the water character. And he becomes, and we sort of learn to see the world differently, slowly, the way he does. And he does that a couple of ways with they show the same scene from Ben-Hur.
Yeah.
And then he sees guns on the wall as Andy Warhol, and he's seeing it a different way.
Right.
But also those basketball players, the basketball team, and that whole idea of him sort of beginning to see like homosocial behavior and things like the Magnificent Seven and that sort of thing in a different light, and how it might be double coded in a way, so that sort of a heterosexual sensibility and subjectivity would see it as a masculine friendliness or whatever, camaraderie, but that it's still available. Certainly, that scene from Ben-Hur is available. It's double coded in a way where it can be read very differently.
Were they drawing parallels between when one was in a war
then several years later, he's got friends from all sides.
Yeah.
He may not agree with his friend selling drugs, but then he uses the money to help people to, whatever, kind of live and let live. And he discovers that these people are in their own war, and he comes to see all sides of the story and all different types of people in the movement. And so I think the second shift is easier for him than the first.
I think you
Yeah, they were-
viewed them as soldiers.
I was going to say they're another enemy group that he comes to see as brothers, the way he did with the others.
And I think you're talking about parts of that are that scene in Ben-Hur that kind of show up in the movie. I mean, that scene when he sees Rocco for the first time, that's a complete recreation
With the beard,
of that,
yeah.
where they twist the arms and everything.
Yeah.
And then I'm always
I
messing
know,
up his
I know.
name. Radmilo, he gets this knowing look in his eye,
And he
he's like,
says Ben-Hur when
Yeah.
he's looking at them. And
Yeah.
how many of y'all knew that Ben-Hur had homosexual undertones? Just a quick show of hands. Or even knew what the movie was. Okay.
Spartacus
The
too.
and Spartacus, definitely.
Spartacus, right.
Yeah, and the reason I ask is I've read Vito Russo's book, The Celluloid Closet, and it goes back and he looks at films, and that there's lots of little things in movies that gay men and lesbians would have picked out that the straight audience wouldn't have, because they had codes against certain things being in movies. So when I saw the Ben-Hur scene in the movie last night, I paused it, and I was like, wait, I know I've read this somewhere. So I went and looked back into it and started reading into it. And I think it's Gore Vidal who was supposed to have helped write that scene, or the love between the two of them and why they ended up hating each other so much. And so I had remembered that, and I thought it was interesting that the movie maker was doing it. And I didn't realize they were going to go and make it so explicit when they come together at the end. And I love that Greek statue that's sitting on his
Yes.
And the fact, of course, when they're wrestling, and like you said, homosocial, and that connection, and all those little things that are in there, just hilarious.
I mean, they're Rocco's in his underwear when they're wrestling.
Yeah.
His Croatian underwear.
Yeah, his Croatian underwear. Yeah, there was and that actually got me thinking when I did work in corrections. There was like I said, if there's a place where there's a lot of threat and few resources, you start to see that hypermasculinity come out, and I think no place exemplifies that more than a correctional setting. And I would start talking. These guys absolutely loved the movie Fight Club. Okay, pretty much everyone here has seen Fight Club. Okay, and they're like, "Oh, this is a man's movie. This is about men being men and drinking and fighting and cursing." Yeah. Ever notice there's only one woman in that whole movie? And that whole movie. Well, first of all, David Fincher, the guy who directed it, is an out gay man. Chuck Palahniuk, the guy who wrote the book that the movie is based on, is an out gay man. And when I informed the guys of this, their faces just fell. They're like, how can gay guys be hyper-masculine? They were just so confused, and it just totally rocked their world. And I think that confabulation of gender, sex, and sexual orientation just happens across the board. So much, hell, I've researched this stuff, and I'm guilty of doing that all the time.
Oh, yeah.
And it's just funny when you notice those little things and point them out. So
This was a brilliant movie. I mean, there's the thing about the ATM.
Yeah, the Americans and heroin.
And when he was packing, when the veterinarian's packing, and he goes through his sees those strange boxer shorts. He just gives him the toothbrush.
But did you see, I think Disney princesses were on the toothbrush, is what it looked like.
Oh, and the Hello Kitty keychain.
And yeah, the Hello Kitty. The pink car, why would they pay? I know he said that they didn't have roaming, which I wasn't sure what that was. I thought maybe cruise control. But why they would take, I mean, of course it added to the humor, taking the pink car. And then the idea of the graffiti being added. So, oh, yes, no. Yes, why they would take it with them is what. But I love that they used that as a joke, where they covered it with graffiti wherever they were, which was, I think, connecting back to those groups coming together that were enemies, and then they're coming together as one, all on that car.
Well, I think what's really valuable about this movie is that it does show the real dangers and brutality and that sort of thing. And yet it's very hopeful, and I think they do that through the family melodrama with the son, and also the veterinarian's father.
Yeah.
At the funeral.
Yeah, that was.
There's this sense that it's not hopeless. It is serious, and it's there's a lot of difficulties facing sort of moving beyond homophobia, but that it's possible.
I don't think that was parallels, and I would also like to think that that's an underlying meaning how useless or what a waste of time war is. It's going to be easy to be friends with all these guys, and what have they got? Just show for it now.
I think it's really just a phase. We go through phases as the years go by. I mean, when it was African Americans, when it was Indians, when it was Hispanics. I mean, now we're just in a phase where it's, the gay and lesbian things. And eventually people will get over it and we'll move on. I mean, we're having all these laws now where we have gay marriage now in certain states. I mean, we're just waiting for something else to come up so we can get to something else. That's how it is. And that's just how it works.
I have a reaction to that because I really, 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 really want that to be the case. And I'm really, really scared that if we say it is, then we're going to gloss over how dangerous it still is right now. I mean, one of the things that came up for me a couple minutes ago when we were talking, we mentioned the Hello Kitty keychain. It reminded me of that initial scene when Radmilo sees his dad. I almost got his name. The sense I got from his dad doesn't necessarily disapprove of him being gay. He was just really worried about him being beaten up and killed. And I don't know. I mean, I think that you're right in the sense that there is that trend. But I think that if we just say, it's just a phase and it'll end up fixing itself, no one's going to fix it.
Well, the dad, do you remember the scene with the dad and the other friend when he goes to pick up the car?
Mm-hmm.
He was pretty cold to this guy.
Yeah.
And I don't think it was just a matter of
No, you're right.
I think
I forgot about that.
It's really something for him to show up with people.
Yeah.
I don't want to be such a downer, but I'm old. And think about women. We've come a long way supposedly. Look at the national distribution of men and women, well, minorities for that matter, gay and straight. Then look at our Congress. We're nowhere near reflecting our population yet.
Yeah.
That was going to be my comment.
Right.
That you could say now, the groups that you mentioned there's still so much inequality with those.
I'm not saying just let it fix itself, but it is something that, in a sense, I do feel it is like a phase. We do have to fight for our rights, and I completely agree with that. In no means am I saying it's going to fix itself, but I do feel that once, this war, in a sense, is over, something else is going to pop up.
Oh, yeah.
And it's just going to continue happening until it just will never stop.
And probably before it's over,
Yeah.
to be perfectly honest. Yeah.
Well, should we thank our panel?
You look like you were going to say something.
We're back here again on Thursday next week.
Last time this happened.